I'm responding currently to the video by the Puppyturtle on his latest video series he's been doing called Lies at the Heart of Atheism, Part G. That would be arrogant. And I thought it would be a real good job to respond to this because I think it's something that's sort of partly misunderstood about a lot of the reasons why atheists do certain things or say certain things. I figured I should respond. If you haven't subbed to him, sub. He does do stuff that I don't agree with, but he also does a lot of good stuff against creationism and whatnot that I do agree with, and I think he's worth watching for those things. And maybe there's some good discussion and stuff that I do disagree with him about. So here is the point. First point that he makes is the point that atheists like to often say that it's arrogant to believe that the universe was entirely created for us, and that we're the only life in the universe, and all other things of that sort. And that we're just so insignificantly small, yet Christians and theists like to believe that everything was specifically done for us. And this really has to do more with a response to the claims that creationists make and whatnot. If it was true, it would be true. I won't disagree with that. But the evidence doesn't really point towards this fact. At least not the creationist model of 6,000-year-old Earth. And this is where most of it comes a response to their claims that God created this Earth 6,000 years ago, that the entire universe, this massive hundreds of billions of light years across universe, was created specifically for us by God just 6,000 years ago. That doesn't fit the facts, and it seems like a huge waste of space and stuff if everything was just created and is going to be destroyed sometime in the next couple of years. It just seems to be a lot of waste. This doesn't disprove it, which I'll agree again, but to me, it's a big strike against, the probability of it being correct. This doesn't disprove it, and I'll admit that that would be argumentum ad consequentiam, or argument from consequence. I don't like the fact that this universe is so big and that it was only created 6,000 years ago, so therefore it can't be true. That's sort of what you're getting at, and I think you actually mean the other one, which is appeal to ridicule, which is where you ridicule the person's argument rather than making points against it. I think that's what you're referring to with the whole arrogance. That's that's the actual fallacy. I don't know wording on it, but that is the fallacy. And again, you would be correct on this, but I think it's not really the entire point. Plus the argument of arrogance often gets used by me and others I've seen as a response to when theists, or particularly creationists, will say that scientists are arrogant. They believe that the universe, they know everything, that they can discover evolution. They believe evolution is true rather than believing God. It's only their arrogance that causes them to not look for God in the universe. That's where a lot of the response I get from and give it to is response to that, where we're being called arrogant because we're leaving the door open to find new information. And I do find there is a lot of arrogance in the theists' beliefs, at least their declarations of stuff. I find that a lot of theists will make flat out statements like science will never understand consciousness. It cannot be discovered because it has a soul. Scientists will never discover what created the Big Bang because God did it. God can't do that. God can't do this. And this goes back to my dislike of a lot of this sort of belief that many theists have. Yes, I will admit, not all, but many do have, that there are certain barriers in science that beyond which God is, and they can never understand it. In doing so, some even go as far to say that trying to learn what is beyond these barriers is blasphemy to God, because that is God's territory and God's only. And that's what I usually give the response of the arrogance to. It's the statements that a lot of people make, particularly those that are lacking the knowledge, training in the subject that they're attacking. Like, how many creationists will sit there, and you've done videos on this, where they'll attack evolution and stuff, and they have very little to no knowledge, or if they do, they're strawmanning the heck out of what science actually claims and says. And this is a regular thing that we see a lot of times. And I've seen this a lot with, even the more open Christians will do the same thing with the Big Bang. They'll sit there and say that the Big Bang isn't possible to be proven, or it proves God, and that God had to do it. And they're making these massively blank statements on things that we don't have enough information yet to state whether or not it can be proven to be done without God or not. But there is a lot of evidence that shows God wasn't required. Does this disprove God? Does this disprove that the earth was created 7,000 years ago? Does this disprove all these other things? No, it doesn't. At least not 100%, because you could have a deceitful God that creates the image, everything being billions of years old. But the thing is, we have to go, I feel, where the evidence leads, not where our hearts want it to lead. And at this point, even if God did create the universe and start the Big Bang, we don't have the knowledge to state whether or not. There's a lot of stuff in science, as Hawking has said, that does show that God wasn't required to start the Big Bang. And we're getting closer and closer to finding out for sure, though we may not 100% be able to know. But I do believe that science doesn't have all the answers, but it's the only real means to get the answers. It goes back to a video I did a couple months ago, or last month, where I talked about empiricism and stated, if not through empiricism, then what can we use to discern truth? If God is proven to exist and the supernatural is proven to exist, it'll be through empirical evidence, not through logic games and fallacies and whatnot. It will be through some sort of hard evidence proving that these things exist. If ghosts exist, we will prove it through video footage, through spectrometers, all sorts of things that can detect and will leave actual physical evidence. The same thing with God and other things. Yes, God could exist and it may never be able to scientifically prove. But at that point, it goes back to the old statement. A God that is invisible, undiscernible, does not actively interact in the universe is exactly the same thing as a God that does not exist. And to me, stating that God exists is arrogance. That doesn't disprove whether or not God exists, which isn't the point. It's a statement that we shouldn't make declarative 100% statements about things that we don't have evidence for. That's where I go. But remember, this mostly goes to creationists. I agree with you on a lot of things, and I think, Puppy, that I can agree and we can get along with a lot of stuff. It's just more of the hard fundamentalists when they state X is definitely 100% true without anything to back them up. That's where I stand on it.